Hello and welcome to this week's commentary video, and it's going to be another tier list video, this time focusing on movies from the 1980s. Before we get into creating that particular tier list, an update on my mom. At the time I'm recording this, December 29th, 2022, my mom is currently in the hospital. She went in on the 28th for a second day of radiation therapy, and she was experiencing some sharp pains. And so they, uh, while she was waiting for her ride to come back home, and so they kept her overnight after she checked herself into the ER. Goes to show how observant the medical professionals at the MD Anderson Center happens to be about people in their facilities. But either way, I do provide updates on my mom at the start of all my Twitch streams. Of course, I'm live over on Twitch every single night. But as you all may know, we are trying to raise money to help my mom cover her medical expenses. The link to her GoFundMe is in the description below. Now, as to why we're doing a tier list of 1980s movies, well, I turned 40 recently, and so it's like, okay, bit of nostalgia trip. Let's start looking back and ranking things or placing stuff where they need to be in terms of if I've seen them, and if I have seen them, how would I rank them or grade them, as it were. So this more than likely might be a long video. I described the first 80s movie tier list that was randomly generated on TierMaker, and so we're just going from there. Let's come over here. Okay, first and foremost, and we'll go in order here. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I have seen. For me, if we got 6 grades here, giving Ferris Bueller a B, above average. I'm not the biggest Matthew Broderick fan in the world in terms of it being a movie that is quote unquote a love letter to Chicago. There is another movie that I consider that does a much better job at that. In essence, the most interesting character in the film is the character of Cameron, because Ferris himself is just an unlikable asshole. Lethal Weapon, Mel Gibson, Danny Glover. That is A tier. There is no question in my mind. It basically sets the standard for the quote unquote buddy cop genre, as far as I'm concerned. Certainly a fair amount of action, a lot of great comedic elements. Pretty much arguably one of Mel Gibson's best performances, and Danny Glover, in terms of the films that I've seen him in, he essentially plays the same character almost all the time. By the way, speaking of movies that are a love letter to Chicago, Blues Brothers S tier. I first saw the Blues Brothers on VHS. I think it was. I don't remember the distributor of the VHS tapes, but it was one. It had like the red side borders on it, not RCA. RCA had like the red border on the front. The Blues Brothers VHS tape that I had as a kid had the red on the side of the VHS cover, but arguably one of the greatest musical comedies of all times. And yes, the Blues Brothers is a musical outright because of how the songs weave in and out. I even consider Blues Brothers 2000 to be a musical as well, just not a particularly good one. But Blues Brothers itself, very quotable, a lot of great performances. Matter of fact, I have on vinyl, like an original pressing of the Briefcase Full of Blues album in my collection. Pumpkinhead, never seen. So, Footloose, C tier. Enjoyable for what it is, but it's never really made much of an impression on me. In terms of it, it kind of is your typical rebelling against the uptight members of society, man. The adults just don't understand. We gotta dance. I know, bit of an exaggeration on that plot point, but it kind of falls into that for me, and it doesn't connect with me in any simple way. Back to the Future. Boy, I could put this S or A tier, and I'm gonna go A tier with it. Mostly because there was just a couple of elements from it that does bother me that I don't feel was fully explored, and it wasn't. Even when I take into account Back to the Future 2 and Back to the Future 3, more so 2, because I consider 2 to be the best film of the trilogy. Back to the Future does a great job of setting up the plot and all the various elements of it that became a trilogy and a fairly successful franchise with the early '90s cartoon, the subsequent Telltale series. It's, just kind of feel that they could have done maybe more with it to some degree. But what that would be, it's hard to say there. Rocky 4. C tier. It's not my favorite Rocky film. Not at all. I actually prefer Rocky 5 over Rocky 4, with my favorite film being Rocky Balboa. I've Rocky 4, particularly the original cut of it, it comes across as a bit lazy with the multiple montages slash music video. It was the heavy use of footage from the previous films. It feels very rushed. Um, and considering the story that it was trying to tell, it it just it falls flat, and I don't consider it. It's average. I mean, if I was to rate the Rocky movies, for me it would go Balboa, Rocky Balboa, or Rocky 2, Rocky 5, Rocky 3, and then Rocky 4. Actually, yeah, shit. Rocky 4, I would consider the worst of them. Now that I'm thinking about it off the top of my head. Risky Business. That movie fucking sucks, and it's not just because of Tom Cruise. I've only seen it once, and it just really it exists as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you sure you got the old time rock and roll scene that this is like iconic and everything of that sort, but it just doesn't. Uh, I just don't like the movie. Top Gun, much to shock a lot of folks, I've never sat down and watched the original Top Gun, not once. And this is considering one of the best friends that I have, all that's reoccurring on my streams on Wednesdays for the most part, is Iceman, who took his name from Top Gun. So, First Blood, and this is the AKA the original Rambo. That is A tier, no questions about it. The only thing that keeps it from S tier for me is that it comes across as a. I feel like some of the more serious, the message of it with how veterans of the Vietnam War were being treated, and doesn't come across as well as it should have for the sake of the action. But it's an excellent movie. It's like this because it's not up here in S tier. It is what is there. Big B tier. One of the few Tom Hanks movies I actually enjoy. Uh, Big, you're a kid, you want to just be an adult, and then have. You can actually draw a lot of parallels to how Tom Hanks' character in Big is actually a reflection now of how a lot of adults are being criticized for. And I saw this complaint article of like members of the political mindset, particularly on the right wing side of it, are complaining about adults buying toys and stuff for themselves, like these big massive Lego sets, or in my case, video games. It's like Big kind of predicted that mindset that there is such a thing with adults. Like you want to appreciate the childhood, particularly if you didn't have those things, and you suddenly are able. Okay, let me get these things for myself and experience them. And that's why I play so many video games. I like to experience that, and I believe Big, really thinking about it, kind of reflects uh, the the inner child is like that's in many cases are neglected. Stand by Me, D. I like it better than Risky Business, which is saying quite a lot, but don't really care for it beyond that. And it doesn't really help that the fact that when I was in the fourth grade, I had to learn how to sing the damn song. Because, and that's a true story. The Stand By Me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. So yeah, we kind of had to learn that song for. I think it was for. Uh, yeah, it was like something in the fourth grade. I don't remember exactly what beyond that, but no, it wasn't fourth grade. No, it was. Fourth. Actually, no, it was sixth grade. Now that I think about it, I had to think back in the timeline there what classes rooms I was in because I transferred from one classroom to another. Uh, but yeah, either which way, there it goes. Stephen King's The Dead Zone. I'm aware of it, never seen it. Sea of Love, never seen it. Caddyshack. The original Caddyshack, it is B tier. You gotta really consider the fact that every single character in the movie is an asshole to some degree. There's no getting around that, particularly Rodney Dangerfield's character, and you kind of feels a little bit of sympathy towards Ted Knight's character. Uh, was it Ted Knight? It wasn't Ray Knight. Ray Knight was baseball. Either which way. So it's like the obvious quote unquote villain of the movie. You kind of feel a little sympathy for because technically he's in the right, even though he's a major league asshole. The Gopher obviously steals the show. As a matter of fact, I learned a lot of my best dance moves. Those who've seen me been playing Persona 4, uh, the Persona 4 Arena Ultimax knows it's like, yeah, that's my dance move. I learned my dance moves from the Gopher and Caddyshack. Escape from New York, A tier. A tier. That doesn't even go without question. Uh, I didn't. Now, I'll be honest here. I didn't see Escape from New York until maybe 2001 ish when I just randomly grabbed it on DVD. Matter of fact, I saw Escape from LA before I ever saw Escape from New York. But the character of Snake Plissken is cool. Granted, it's entirely shot at night, but everything about go in, get the president, get out within 24 hours. Was it 24 or was it 48? I think it was maybe 48 in Escape from New York because I think it's 24 in Escape from LA. But it was a real good movie. It's like the Duke ain't number one. Pretty cool, and you bought Kurt Russell as a badass in his own right there. The Shining, and for me, it's yeah, one of the very few Stanley Kubrick films that I've seen that I actually enjoy. I thought The Shining is good. I won't go out of my way to sit down and watch it, even if it's on TV. I was like the couple times I've seen it, it definitely leaves an impression. You got the iconic Here's Johnny and Jack Nicholson's overall performance. It's a great film. So there you go. La Bamba. See, as a docudrama, as more as like as a biodrama on Richie Valence's life that was cut short because he was involved in that plane crash that killed not only him but Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper, quote unquote, the day the music died. It's serviceable for what it is. The soundtrack is really good. The original Tron, I'm sorry, I fucking hate that film. F tier. Visually, it looks alright, but I hate that film. I mean, the only good thing about Tron is the how it was incorporated into Kingdom Hearts 2. And I know there are probably some people that's going to want to lynch me for that, but there you go. War Games. I will admit I have seen it. D tier. Seen it, didn't care for it, but I like it better than Risky Business and Tron. Again, maybe it's because I'm not just it's like Matthew Broderick is just kind of there for me. So it's like either above average or below average. You're just taking into the fact of how I place his movies that starred him. A Christmas Story. F tier. Awful. Terrible. It should be stricken from the public consciousness. And the fact that TBS did those fucking all day marathons with it year after year after year really has driven home the point that that movie is fucking awful. The Karate Kid, C tier, average. Again, more of like, it's okay, kid moves from the East Coast to the West Coast, trouble fitting in, dealing with bullies and all that jazz. If anything, from what I've seen of Cobra Kai, basically shows that the character of Danny LaRusso could be seen as the clear aggressor in terms of trying to fit into the existing cliques and so forth. So it really depends on your point of view. Matter of fact, I want to say because of Cobra Kai, I actually am giving it a C tier. Because I think without that influence, a D tier. And I know Karate Kid 2 and 3, those were terrible films. I actually liked the next Karate Kid that came out in, like, what was that, 93, 94? I thought that was pretty good for what it was. And we're not talking about that. We're talking about these movies. Back to the Future 2. If I gave Back to the Future an A tier, and I said I liked the Back to the Future 2 a lot more, yeah, it is. Because it picks up on everything that's set up in the first film and expands on it. It really dives into the temporal paradox in terms of changing one thing in the past and really runs nuts with it across the board, particularly with the alternate 1985. And if the wrong person gets into the time machine, realizes what it is, it really does an excellent job in terms of just building up on everything. Let's see. The Terminator, the original Terminator, that's S tier. No question there. Arnold's performance, not having to say a damn thing, is pretty iconic. The imagery of the Terminator, the actors who played Sarah Connor, I was like, boy, I can't remember her name at this exact moment, and who played Kyle Reese, they really do a great job of carrying the film. Arnold exists as the menacing threat. You believe it. It's, again, awesome, incredible movie. Commando, another Arnold film, and that's A tier for me. Commando gets labeled as either being the greatest Arnold Schwarzenegger action parody of all time. Because of all the one-liners, how over the top it is, it just makes it awesome. Granted, the thing is, though, the character of Bennett, who is supposed to be somewhat equal to Arnold, doesn't. You just realize that when that encounter happens, you just know Arnold is going to turn him into mincemeat, which is expected and everything. But that's probably one of the biggest when you think about it, Commando is actually the big justification for Arnold really branching out into doing more comedy and stuff as when the 90s rolling around. Because in terms of finding people that will look threatening against him, it's not that easy. I mean, look at and Arnold was truly a jacked up dude. So, but when you think about it, like who would like make Arnold look small? Well, outside of professional wrestlers and basketball players, uh, there weren't that many people, particularly in Hollywood, that you could put around him that will make Arnold look like he's out of his depth. So him going going on to do things like Kindergarten Cop and Twins. Granted, what came? I actually forget the order when Twins came out in relation to Commando. I think Twins was after Commando. So, but it also was that movie Junior, also in the 90s. But still, A tier for what it is. Awesome, over the top. E.T. B tier for me. As a kid, I enjoyed it a lot. I could put it in and just watch it as a kid. As an adult, I appreciate what it was. It's still a very good movie. I just wouldn't put it up here anymore. As a kid, I probably would put it up here and knock actually a few of the action more films down a bit. Here's something I'll admit. I never seen The Fly. The Goonies I have seen, and I've seen it as a kid. I'm more familiar with the music video with all the wrestlers on it nowadays. But I'm throwing it as C tier because I don't remember much about it. Because I remember seeing it as a kid. Because I know the kid from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, who played Short Round, was in this movie. But I don't remember anything else about it. It's like I know I've seen it, but C tier by default. Color Purple I have never seen. Which Star Trek film is this? Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. That is B tier. Some would say it's the best of the films featuring the original cast. If it's not the best, it's second best behind Wrath of Khan. It's a fun film. It's the only real one of the first 6 Star Trek films that got the actors off of sound stages and existing sets where they're actually to get around and do stuff. No, Star Trek 5, they were able to get around and do stuff because a lot of that was filmed what that was it, Yosemite National Park, and also out in the deserty parts of California. So there were Star Trek 5 that got in and about, but still in terms of a contemporary setting, Star Trek 4 is the one that did that. You had the comedic moments, nuclear vessels with Walter Koenig's Chekhov, the entire exchange return, some literally a random person on the street. So it again, it still holds up. The message of you got to take care of the planet, otherwise you're fucked. Really holds true. The Burbs, starring Tom Hanks. Never seen it. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah. S tier. The film that introduces Indiana Jones into the public consciousness as a throwback to a lot of the serial-styled action shorts of the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Like the pulp action hero. It just works. I would dare say it is Harrison Ford's most iconic role. I mean, hell, he has, from what I understand in interviews that I've actually sat down and watched, the Ford actually participated in. He has more of a fondness for Indiana Jones than he does for Han Solo. And fun fact, Harrison Ford appeared in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, the series that was airing on ABC that really channeled in a lot of the character's life before the films. So, so there is that. It again, a Raiders great film. Again, all the iconic energy, the sound effects, the various punches, which I think gets recycled a number of times in a number of LucasArts related films and related games and other media. A lot of the sound effects actually come from Raiders in terms of like actual physical stuff, not sci-fi. Uncle Buck, I have seen this. It's a D tier movie for me. John Candy, I have a soft spot for John Candy, but Uncle Buck is a movie I really don't fully care for, but I like it more than what I have in the F tier. Monster Squad, I've only seen it once, and it was maybe 10 years ago when I actually sat down and watched it. It's a D tier movie for me. Great in concept. I just feel like the execution was a little bit flat. I mean, in terms of what they were shooting for and knowing what other movies came out in the 1980s, I feel like Monster Squad could have been so much better. Evil Dead 2 and Evil Dead, never seen. I know, granted, I make references, Hail to the King, baby. This is my boomstick, and things of that sort. I make reference to it because I actually associate those lines more with Duke Nukem 3D. But I've never sat down and watched any of the Evil Dead films. I'm aware of the character of Ash of Ash Williams and the character of the actor of Bruce Campbell. I know how iconic it is. I just never sat down and watched them. Demons, what the hell is this? Whatever this is, I've never seen it. Child's Play, I have seen, and I am begrudgingly, I want to give it a B. I'm of two minds with Child's Play because I just first saw it as a kid on a. It was randomly rented. We visited somebody's house, and this tape they had rented and sat down and watched it. So it was after it was in the theaters. So I want to say I was maybe 8, maybe 9 years old when I first saw it. And I'm someone who had one of those My Buddy like nearly like 3 feet tall, like 2.5 to 3 feet tall toys. So needless to say, that movie kind of was like, yeah, I'm not gonna have anything that size in my house, near me ever a fucking again. Just for the fear of it. Yeah, this thing comes to life, it could fucking kill me. So there's that terrifying aspect of it. But then when you realize what comes after that, and Toy Story, when you really think about it, that has one of the scariest movies too, is where the kids with the toys attack Sid, the neighbor kid. And so it's kind of like this in its own way. Pixar played a callback to Child's Play, but still, I will call it a B tier movie for me. It is what it is. Will I sit down and willingly watch it ever again? Hell no. Do I appreciate it for what it did in terms of actually to this day still causing me some mental chills? Yes, I do appreciate it for what it is. Ghostbusters. Yeah, S tier for me. S tier. Those who know, like I know I'm a big Ghost head anyway. As a matter of fact, I did contribute to the GoFundMe for the Ghost Heads DVD documentary year that came out in 2016. One of the few crowdfunding projects I actually contributed to. Again, a very quotable film, very fun film. I do kind of wish it wasn't. The only negative about it is I kind of feel that when one actually pays attention to the continuity of it, that it didn't have like the music video approach to the editing. That's but again, that's more of a criticism on Ivan Reitman than anything else. Weird Science, I've only seen once or twice. In terms of a concept and everything, it definitely always piques my interest. But it's a film that exists, so it's like it's a C tier for me. Because I think some of the iconic imagery and the ideas of it, just I'll have to really sit down and give it a more serious watch at some point to I will have to reevaluate that. Star Wars: Return of the Jedi. Most people are probably going to be begrudging this. I am going to give it a B on it. As a conclusion to the original three films, it works. As a standalone film, it does feel kind of weak, and to a large extent, you had to have seen the first two films to actually understand a lot of it, particularly at the beginning. I mean, granted, the opening scroll and everything setting up to rescue Han Solo from Jabba's palace plays into it. But then you realize they're recycling the it's the whole Death Star battle all over again. Right down to getting to a very narrow passageway. Except this time, instead of shooting two torpedoes down a hole, you gotta go into the hole and shoot the damn thing to destroy the station. I didn't mind the Ewoks and stuff like that. And again, full disclaimer, when I first saw it, it was on VHS. I think it was CBS Home Video that was distributing it at the time. Videodrome, I'm aware of it. I have never seen it. Night of the Creeps, never seen that. Fright Night, heard of it, never seen it. Full Metal Jacket. If you think I'm putting this S tier, you are out of your fucking mind. It's not even A tier. It's not even B tier. It's not even C tier. It is a D tier movie because there are some parts of it that for me actually works. But what works against it is when and where I first saw it, which was in the summer of 2000 when I was doing my boot camp training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And for like a reprieve one night, they decided to put this movie on. It was like, yeah, that was so. A number of the stuff that worked for me in regards to it. I mean, I like a good portion of the first half, but it's the second half of it that really falls apart for me. Once Joker is, he passes Marine boot and he is in Vietnam and everything that comes forward from there onward. It's like the entire second half of it when they're out in the shit and everything in the combat, it just doesn't hold together as well. I mean, for me, it just falls apart in the second half. Reanimator. I know, I've heard of it, never seen it. RoboCop, an A-tier film for me. Still holds up to this very day. I watched it not too long ago, actually. I mean, Peter Weller does a very good job, and they really do a good job of casting around it, because Peter Weller ain't that tall, even with the suit on. Sure, are there some serious flaws with the film? Yeah, but when one realizes it is a satire, particularly as it relates to the corporations expanding into police and so forth. Hell, we've seen how corporations have screwed up the medical industry and hospitals and so forth. So can you imagine if corporations were running police departments around the country? Yeah, so there you go. Teen Witch. Ooh, I have seen that, but I've seen it, but I can't remember it fully, so I'm throwing it C tier. The Hitcher, I've never even heard of it. Never seen it. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I have seen this film, and it is an F tier film for me. And I can't believe it's getting a video game, an asymmetric multiplayer video game made based on it. So that surprises the hell out of me. But I hate that film outright. What is this? This Amadeus. Yeah, that goes S tier in terms of the telling of Mozart's life and how over the top he is, and an over dramatic, in an over the top dramatic way to some the extent. And how much of that is true, I don't know, but it's still an excellent film. It's a very good film. This is Spinal Tap. I've only seen a couple of times. I am labeling it B tier. Some of the jokes and stuff fall flat, but when you realize that it's making it's a parody of the rock lifestyle, it's okay. It's good. It's a very good film, and it's basically been the I would say the blueprint that a lot of mockumentaries have been following in the years since. Stripes, for me, A tier. And it gets to the A tier because of the extended cut. If it and the original theatrical version, the one that was often on VHS tapes, would be a B tier for me, but the extended cut puts it up to an A tier. Again, Bill Murray plays another asshole, but I think Harold Ramis actually does a great job in being a nice counterweight to Bill, the Bill's character of Winger. It's like the iconic imagery of the fully loaded RV evading Czechoslovakia to rescue the rest of their platoon is really stands out. The mud wrestling scene. It's overall a very good, very funny film that still holds up. Aliens, and that's an eight. That's an S tier film for me. Not even a question of it. As a pure action sci-fi film, that makes a huge distinction away from the first film. Does an excellent job. Sigourney Weaver is great in it. I kind of, but it still makes me wish, and it's just a realization that, boy, Alien 3 was such a disappointment, and then Alien Resurrection even more so. They try to go back, they try to go back to the tone of the first film. And the Alien franchises and the other films, the films after Alien Resurrection, I have not seen. Because the trailers and, doesn't feel like they keep trying to capture that magic of the first film, which is impossible because that movie did everything perfectly. And Aliens went, okay, let's take that concept and go in a completely different direction with it, was the right call. So there you go. The Running Man, another Schwarzenegger movie. B tier for me. And Jesse Ventura steals the show in The Running Man for me, but the action in his Schwarzenegger's character and everything, all the different quote unquote levels, and the fact that basically it was predicting what reality TV would end up being. It's just a very good film. It's like very good, but it's like it's B tier for me. Blue Velvet. If I was talking about the YouTube, the Twitch streamer, I would put it higher, but I've never seen it. Die Hard. I'm tempted to put it there, but I'm putting it A tier. It's the greatest Christmas movie of all time. And it is a Christmas movie because the plot of John McClane's character has no. If it wasn't for the fact that the entire setup is it being Christmas, that he's visiting his family, his estranged wife to try and patch things up, it doesn't happen without the Christmas setup. It just doesn't. Still, very quotable film, very fun film, and when you really want to really extend it, Reginald Vell Johnson, who plays Owl in this film, is also the cop in Ghostbusters when they're waiting in the jail. And then you draw the connection to Family Matters. One could say that they're all the same character. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. I've actually seen this, and it is a D tier film. It is an incoherent mess. One actually could call it Michael Jackson's ego trip. And we're moving on. The Outsiders, heard of it, never seen it, never even read the book. The Little Mermaid. Oh yeah, this is going up here. S tier, no questions about it. Boom. There's very little I could say that was wrong with the film. I mean, it is one of the greatest Disney films, animated films of all time. Out of Africa, never seen. Three Amigos. I still have, it's somewhere, but I still have the VHS tape of this. It's a B-tier film. A lot of it still holds up for me. I still thinking about it. Matter of fact, I was talking with my brother about this the other day, and he was, for whatever reason, he was remembering the Singing Bush. So it's like, okay, so there you go. My brother is 7 years younger than me. So again, B tier there. Critters. I have seen this. F tier, hate it. Chariots of Fire. Outside, I've never seen it, but I'm aware of the musical score of it. Coming to America. That's a C tier movie for me. I mean, parts of it hit, part of it doesn't. Granted, there's that great callback to Trading Places. I mean, but this is about the time, at least in terms of Eddie Murphy films, because Eddie Murphy as a lead is very hit. It rarely hits with me, and it's often a miss. Coming to America is kind of like that mid ground for me when it comes to Eddie Murphy. So it's like, it's there, it has its moments. Beetlejuice, A tier. Again, the iconic imagery, one of Tim Burton's best films. I know Michael Keaton was fucking awesome as the character of Beetlejuice. The Winona Ryder as Olivia Bates. Is really iconic in terms of her look and presentation. Matter of fact, for the longest time, I had a huge crush on Winona Miss Ryder, particularly as a teenager. I was like, appreciate that look that she had in this film and everything of that sort. Matter of fact, think about it, she's actually has aged beautifully. American Werewolf in London. I've not seen it. I've seen American Werewolf in Paris, which is kind of like the remake. And I saw that in theaters. Do the Right Thing. I'm aware of it. I've seen clips of it. Never sat down and watched it. Once Upon a Time. What is this? In America? I don't think don't know what that is. Sleepaway Camp. Never even heard of it. Rain Man. I have seen. B tier. Again, Dustin Hoffman's great on it, and I just find Tom Cruise to be a bit grating. That's really all I can say about it. It is a good movie. Breakfast Club, I've only seen a couple of times. Again, for a lot of its imagery and the tropes and stereotypes of basically the 80s high school teen scene, it does a fair job of representing it. Molly Ringwald was certainly all around. And Dune, I've seen it. Just too damn fucking long. I think they had the idea of writing it into multiple movies with the modern stuff, but that first, the Dune of the 1980s, too damn long. Scarface, B tier for me. It's like if I see it on TV, on the few times I have my TV on, if it comes on, if I'm not doing anything else, I'll sit and watch it. So, Purple Rain, never seen. A Fish Called Wanda, never seen. The Fog, never seen. The Howling, I have seen F tier. That movie sucks. Flight of the Navigator, I have seen, and it's a C tier movie, completely average. Um, Kind of is what it is there. Day of the Dead. I always get these of the Dead, Nights of the Living Dead. I always get them mixed up. If this is the one with the mall, see, and there you got Return of the Living Dead. Return of the Living Dead, I've never seen. Day of the Dead, I don't know if this. I don't know if this is the one with the mall or not, because the one with the mall I've seen, but I don't know if that's it. Stepfather, no. Spaceballs, yeah, no question. This is an A tier film. As a send up of Star Wars and sci-fi films in general, awesome. I'm still very much disappointed that we can never. They never marketed the yogurt pull the string stuffed toy. Real disappointed in that. The Eagle 5 Winnebago is awesome. Rick Moranis is just great as Dark Helmet. Um, Incredible, awesome, funny film. National Lampoon's Vacation. B tier. Chevy Chase is great in it. I just feel the film could have, its pacing can drag for me in parts, but other than that, it's great. Elephant Man, I've heard of it, never seen it. The Blob. Yeah, another 80s horror film that kind of goes, this schlock. Keep in mind, in terms of horror, the only one that's really like connected with me here that's actually rated like Aliens is action horror, action sci-fi horror, and The Shining is straight dramatic horror. But some of these are just kind of see a genre there. Ghostbusters 2. For me, it's an A tier film. It continues the story, except 5 years later, showing that the crew has moved on and tried to explain various things. And that lawsuit that it says when Winston tells Ray, it's like, what happened to the team that they got sued by every city, county, and state agency in New York because Ray was basically, and it primarily comes down to that he conjured up a 100-foot marshmallow man. So that line is actually in there, and it justifies why the Ghostbusters went out of business or were shut down for a time. Heather's never seen Airplane. That's an A tier film for me. And I've actually, what was the original called? I think the original was called 0 Hour, and it's literally a straight remake line for line of that film. But on its own, Airplane holds up incredibly well, particularly when you realize it's about so many actors in it were serious actors. Leslie Nielsen was known more for drama than comedy. Matter of fact, Airplane was basically what he always wanted to do, comedy, but people didn't think he could. Airplane showed that he could, and kind of took off from there because he did Police Squad after it, the Naked Gun films, and I don't think Leslie Nielsen did anything dramatic ever again after Airplane. The Dark Crystal. It's been ages since I've seen that. But from what I recall, very impressive. But I can't say anything stands out about it because it's been over 30 years since I've actually seen it. Star Trek. This is what's that? The Wrath of Khan. Again, 8. Not gonna put it S tier because I don't think any Star Trek film has ever reached that point. But Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, it's a follow up to the episode Space Seed. The musical score on it is big and bombastic. It is awesome. Ricardo Montalban is incredible. As a matter of fact, I like his performance as Khan as being very vengeful and motivated to get back at Kirk. It is really the heart of the film. One big drawback of it, and William Shatner expressed this in numerous of his in a number of his books, that he and Montalban were never shared the stage in the film. They did in the episode Space Seed back in the 60s, but not in Star Trek 2. So it would have been it would have actually been great if there was that moment where it's like, okay, Kirk and Khan duking it out one last time, but it is what it is. 1989 Batman. That is an S tier movie as far as I'm concerned. It's like Jack Nicholson as the Joker is great. Matter of fact, two Nicholson films in my S tier. Michael Keaton is awesome in as well. Kim Basinger, Robert Wool was like, I will dare say it's the best damn Batman movie ever. And considering what's came after it, that distinction is very much justified. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That's a B tier. Definitely not as good as Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's sure as hell not as good as Last Crusade. Matter of fact, I don't. I would say it's good as Crystal. It's as good as Crystal Skull. So that's where it is with me. I know that Temple of Doom is actually a prequel to Raiders. They don't make it clear, but subsequent media and everything places it before Raiders. It does have its great. It does have its great moments. I'm someone. Again, I've seen it as a kid, so Short Round being there, I know a lot of folks found that character to be annoying, as well as the character of Willie Scott, who is justifiably annoying because of how much he screams. But it's a B tier movie. It's definitely it has more schlock to it than Raiders did, particularly when they get into the when they find the catacombs and get into it with the with the cult and everything. Creep Show. I have seen it, and it's not an F tier film. It goes D tier for me because it is a number. It is a segmented film with shorts, highly produced short films in it. I can't fully remember it. I just know I liked at least one of them. I just can't remember it. But in comparison to the likes of Killer Crowns, Critters, The Howling, and The Blob, it escapes that F tier. Hellraiser. Ooh. Hellraiser, I'm giving a C tier. I've only seen it once, and I saw it as when I was 10 years old, and it was on cable. So I seen like a very edited version of it. Visually, it left an impression. Pinhead, in terms of that look, it left an impression on me. It's just like, okay, I'll be generous and give it a C tier. 2010, the Space Odyssey sequel, never seen it. Rambo 2, First Blood Part 2. Yeah. C tier. When folks start making fun of Rambo and what that became of, and when you realize that the person who wrote the original book, First Blood, that created John Rambo, why they're so disappointed and that they basically trashed the Rambo series. It begins more with Rambo, with First Blood Part 2. And then it really goes off the rails in Rambo 3 before trying to get back to it many years later with the more modern, with the last couple Rambo films, as if Stallone realizes, oh shit, we went way off the track there. Big Trouble in Little China. That's an A tier film for me. It's like Kurt Russell is great in it, and when you realize that we were basically experiencing the story of the Fish Out of Water story through Jack Burton's eyes. Granted, it's being told by Egg Shen as a secondhand account, but realize, well, Jack Burton is like the quote unquote main protagonist. He's just there witnessing everything. So he just happens to stumble into the right place, wrong time. Story of his life. Gremlins. That is the second greatest Christmas movie of all time. And yes, Gremlins is a Christmas movie. There is, again, particularly once the evil gremlins start running amok and and everything that goes wrong, like the mean old lady who's basically the equivalent of the Wicked Witch being launched out a freaking window, the mom just going all Rambo, blowing one, nuking one in a microwave, blending one. It's awesome. And then realizing that film was a lot darker in its earlier adaptations of versions of the script and the screenplay. It's like, god damn, awesome film. Flash Gordon, ha ha, savior of the universe. Again, and I'm fully aware. I've actually seen some of the older Flash Gordon like serial shorts, so I have seen those like in subsequent years. And having seen those, I have more of an appreciation for what they were trying to do with the film, trying to condense like a full, what would have been like the 15-part epic shorts that were being seen in theaters into a 2 hour, uh, you know, about a 2 hour movie. It's like, okay, kind of have to appreciate everything that was going with that. So give it its due. Pee Wee's Big Adventure. It's an A tier. I would probably be shot if I said anything else. Again, this is another case of realize this that Tim Burton films, Batman, Beetlejuice, Pee Wee's Big Adventure. It's like, okay, they're Tim Burton was definitely peak in the 80s. And Pee Wee's Big Adventure certainly has some great moments. The Large Marge scene and still is like with her making that dramatic phase. The whole chase of the bike and all the antics that Pee Wee gets up and into the tequila scene. It just works. And it was at the height of Paul Rubens' powers. Because at the same time, or around that same time, or at least by the time I saw it, because I didn't see it in the theaters, but I was aware of the character of Pee Wee Herman because of Pee Wee's Playhouse airing. Was I think that was airing on ABC back in the 80s. The Lost Boys. Oddly enough, I have never seen it. Mad Max 2. Ooh, I have seen it, but it's been a long time. As far as I'm concerned, it exists, but it left no impression on me, positive, negative. So just be generous, C tier on that. The Thing. Hey, look, it's a horror film. No, I forgot that I put Child's Play up here. So there you go. The Thing, B tier. It's just that perfect tension of like of suspicion and distrust and how it's like things can just go totally wrong when you don't believe or the accusations start flying. That's where the real horror drives in. You got the alien creature in itself is terrifying in its own right, but let that loose around today definitely goes off the wall. The Abyss, I actually seen The Abyss, and it's one of those films that's kind of it exists. It's a C tier. Adventures in Babysitting. My mom rented this randomly in the 90s, and I remember enjoying it a bit. So it's like it goes B tier for me. They Live. Arguably my favorite of the John Carpenter films that I've actually sat down and watched. A tier film. Roddy Piper and Keith David's fight scene is absolutely iconic. I know I throw that word around, but it's like the fact that it's referenced so many times. There's like South Park did a stand up of it. The fact that Roddy Piper and Keith David were involved in Saints Row 4, and Keith David's loyalty mission involves that fight being depicted. Just going to show how much of an impact it has. What the hell does this? I can't even see it. So, whatever this is, I don't know. Fast Times at Ridgemont High? No, I've never seen it. Beverly Hills Cop? A tier. A tier without question. John Reinhold and Eddie Murphy is great. I don't remember the character who plays a Taggart or a Bogomil, but I thought the chemistry, everything about that movie, about Beverly Hills Cop, just clicks. Because while it has its comedic moments, you can kind of see those wisecracks happening in a normal dramatic setting, and so it, it's not trying to play up the last like ha 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 laughs. It's like you get a chuckle of that, but the story actually holds it together, and the performances do as well. What was that? Working Girl, I've never seen. Rocky 3. So, like I said, if Rocky 4 is C tier for me, Rocky 3 is definitely B tier. It's not exactly a music video. It just goes to shows like Rocky getting complacent, getting knocked from the top, and then finding himself and getting him, getting back to it. Actually, when one thinks about it, Rocky 3 really should have been ended. It should have been that build to the fight with Clubber Lang. And this is just me spitballing here, with Rocky losing and then having to find himself in Rocky 4 for the rematch. So, no, when you really think about it, Rocky 3 is just a condensed version of Rocky 1 and 2. It's like, wait, he loses the first fight and then he comes and then he wins the second fight when he has his motivations. Oh, yeah, there you go. What is this? Oh, The Princess Bride. I think that's The Princess Bride. B tier. It's a cute movie. It's a fairy tale, live action fairy tale. It is what it is. Raging Bull, I have never seen. Christine, I have never seen. Platoon, I have seen. And much like, even more so than Full Metal Jacket. I mean, it doesn't fall. It's not quite F tier for me, but it's it's a movie that exists, but I can't really think as like that I enjoy it. To any large degree, like no, not really, but I consider it better than what's down in the F tier. Predator, that's B tier for me. Again, this is what it is. The great line, "I ain't got time to bleed," from Jesse Ventura kind of makes that film, as far as I'm concerned. Uh, Arnold's great in it. The Carl Weathers, like, that mid late '80s is kind of tough. Carl Weathers ends up getting killed in two films, Rocky 4 and Predator. When you think about it, though, at least his characters do, in dramatic and brutal fashion. What's next? Poltergeist. I've never sat down and watched that. A Nightmare on Elm Street. A tier. As a kid, I fucking hated that film. But as I've grown over, I've learned to appreciate it. It's kind of tough to tolerate the character of Freddy Krueger in a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise when your name is Fred. So it's like so that probably biased me against it in so many ways. But Flashdance. It's getting the C tier because of the soundtrack more than anything else. I think I remember the show more than I do the movie, because I remember the show being on WPHL 17 on reruns in the late '80s as a kid. Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, that is A tier for me. Arguably the best Star Wars film of all time, where everything goes so very wrong, but it just hits all the right story beats. Glory, S tier, no question about it. First time I saw Glory was actually in high school, in segments, in a history class. I want to say it was my sophomore year. No, wait. No, it was my freshman year when I saw it. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? That's definitely S tier in terms of the technical magic that was used in terms of applying animation and live action for an entire film. Granted, that sort of thing was done before, but not to that large of extent. And the licensing, because you not only had Disney characters, but you also had the Warner Brothers characters, equal representation, and characters that were not from either of those two major corporate rivals in terms of cartoons. You had a number of like Droopy was what MGM, and I think by that point the MGM library Tom and Jerry was already owned by Turner. So, and I think another thing, I think Droopy is the lone MGM representative. I'm not. I could be wrong. Porky's. I have seen. That's an awful fucking film. Moving on. Labyrinth, I've seen, and it's kind of like the Dark Crystal. It's been so long since I've seen it, so I know I've seen it. I know I enjoyed it, but I can't say why more than that. So it kind of falls there. Kiss of the Spider Woman, never even heard of it. Dirty Dancing. The soundtrack is okay, but as a movie, I absolutely hate it. Not hate is like it's not risky business bad. It's just not something I would say I would. It's a channel changer for me. That's kind of like what these categories are. 48 hours. Boom. Kind of seem like they run the gamut here of Eddie Murphy. Like, okay, Beverly Hills Cop coming to America in 48 hours. So it's kind of like, 48 hours, I just don't. It's just terrible. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It's B tier. It's a little bit more slapsticky than the first film, and probably has more memorable moments on it. But it's a B tier movie for me. 16 Candles. I have never seen. The Untouchables. A tier. Kevin Costner is great. Sean Connery is great. Robert De Niro is great. It, it's a great film. It led to the revival for a short time of a television series, and I got my dad interested. And I do remember this in tracking and getting the Columbia House release on videos of the episodes from the original series. Friday the 13th. Go B or C. I'm going to put B on it. I mean, Jason, granted, we know it's like the mother that's actually has Jason and everything, but everything associated with Friday the 13th and knowing this, how troubled that franchise is, just in terms of licensing rights. And then when you realize just how bad those films actually got as the series progressed, uh, like I don't think I've ever seen the second film. I may have seen the Jason Takes Manhattan. And I know I didn't see any of the ones that came out in the 90s, like Jason in Space, Jason versus Freddy, Freddy versus Jason. I've never seen those. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. S tier without question. True story. Batman, Ghostbusters 2, Lethal Weapon 2, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I saw all those in the summer of '89 in theaters. And I remember the VHS tape for the Last Crusade. It had a Coca-Cola commercial at the start of it, which was kind of funny. Blade Runner. Yeah, it's a B tier movie for me. I have to watch Blade Runner. For me, I have to more like listen to it, because if I sit and watch it, I actually fall asleep. I mean, it's a great movie, but it's not. Its pacing kind of just wears me down, and I'm not someone that can sit and watch a slow pace movie anymore. But so either I'm watching it in like parts. It's like if I doze off, okay, what's this last part was I've seen, and then go from there. Teen Wolf D. And I watched that movie a lot as a kid. As a kid, I liked it, but as I grown older, it's like, yeah, it's tough to see. It's like Michael J. Fox as a basketball player, particularly when he looks so out of shape in comparison to the other actors that were playing these high school students. Terms of Endearment, never seen. Little Shop of Horrors, I do appreciate a good musical. B tier. Annie, never seen. The Never Ending Story, B tier. Matter of fact, that's a movie I haven't seen in a long time, but its imagery with that big dog like dragon, the song and some of the visuals just makes think, yeah, I definitely enjoyed that as a kid. Fox and the Hound, C tier. It is a completely average, harmless Disney movie. The Great Mouse Detective, on the other hand, like I think one of the first Disney films to even incorporate CGI or computer graphics. That's an A tier movie for me. Highly underappreciated. Really, considering the missed opportunities with Kingdom Hearts, a Great Mouse Detective level with Sora, Donald, and Goofy being shrunk down to Basil's size would have been awesome. I definitely have a soft spot for The Great Mouse Detective as a movie. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Sorry, that's an S tier movie for me. I saw that in theaters, and its sequel. Again, I do have an appreciation for world history. As a matter of fact, in school, history was my best subject, and I do credit Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure for. I mean, basically, I coaxed my way through social studies and history classes. Like my in middle. Granted, I was in elementary school when this movie came out, but as I get older and more of a focus on general history, once I got into middle and high school, I always think back to some of the stuff and like that appreciation, how knowing that history is important. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. That's an A tier film, and I saw that in theaters. It had a matter of fact, it had a Roger Rabbit short in front of it too. Definitely the best of the Honey, I fill in the blank to the kids movies. Um, the set design to make everything look so damn huge in comparison to these teen actors were just phenomenal. The little ant, the ant versus the scorpion type scene. I'm assuming that looks really damn good as stop motion. Um, it's just a great film. The Land Before Time, I watched a lot because we had the VHS tape of that. It was like me and my brother watched that a lot. That's a B tier movie for me. Not even a question of it. It exists. We watched it a lot. Yep. It's like Ducky is like that just stands out the way. Petrie, the little pterodactyl, the little sassy little Triceratops, Littlefoot, the little miniature Brontosaurus, and the always stoic Spike. I don't think said anything in those films until much later on. I don't think Spike ever said a word in those films. He was just more expressive, or he just couldn't care less. All Dogs Go to Heaven. That's C tier. And I think I saw that in theaters. It did have some dark imagery. I think towards the end, where I forget the name of the character of the dogs was like, was being like drowned or something or other. And I do remember vaguely there being an animated series based on it too. An American Tale and Not Five Goes Rest. Five Goes West, I liked a hell of a lot more than American Tail, mainly because it's like the cowboy setup, but I will give it its due. It's like if Five Goes West was on here, I would put Five Goes West as an A-tier film. And American Tail for everything is just completely average. It looks good. I mean, it's a cute story, but I've maybe only seen it like maybe a couple of times since I've been a kid. So, the Black Cauldron. I want to give this a B tier mainly because it is so underappreciated when you realize that Disney was in that real heavy transition period, and I'm surprised Oliver and Company wasn't on here because I would have put Oliver and Company as a B tier. Black Cauldron looks good. Its story is a bit all over the place, but I I don't think people actually appreciated that Disney, in terms of something, they were trying to do some things a little bit different with some of the usual fantasy tropes. It just wasn't. They didn't have the right mindset and time of it, but. And I do feel like much with the Great Mouse Detective, you want to draw interest to some of these older properties, you can dump a Black Cauldron on it. You can tie that into Maleficent quite easily. The Wizard, the glorified commercial for Nintendo. That's a D tier movie. It's so bad. And I'm not talking about the Power Glove because the Power Glove itself was ass. That was, but the Wizard, yeah, and it's you had the with the video game savant aspect of it is kind of cool. But beyond that, nothing about it really holds up at all. Quest for Fire, I've never seen or never even heard of. And Superman. Would this be more Superman 2? It's not Quest for Peace. Okay. Because there was a few Superman movies that came out in the 80s. I mean, you got Quest for Peace, you have Superman 3, and when was I'm actually going to cheat here. When was Superman 2 released? 1981. Okay. So since Gene Hackman is on this on this box art here, taking account it's Superman 2 and it's the one with General Zod and everything here, taking all this into account, B tier. Superman 3 and 4 would easily be D tiers, both of them, without question. So, boy, there was a lot of films there. Now, granted, I probably spent more time on some than others. Tried to justify my reasoning and logic, but what do you expect with things like this? You know, it's all subjective. Anyway, so that was me putting a tier maker list together on 1980s films. So if you tolerated this, I would say hit the like and subscribe button, but no one actually does it because I don't. When other channels do it. But of course, again, we'll see you all on Twitch every night, and this gives me, of course, time to think of what we're going to put down next week. Anyway, leave your thoughts on this tier list if you made it all the way through, or if you only seen like the first few and start thinking I'm an idiot, put that down there too. So with that said, tighten your friendship bracelet, stay safe, have a great one, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.